Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast, the podcast that gives you immediate actions you can take to start seeing life-shifting results now. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Achieve Results Now podcast. This is Mark Cardone
and Theron Feidt.
So why isn't it working? This is the question. And I
Yes.
love that we're going to talk about this today. Nothing is working. And so often I talk to people who are in this, and I've been here recently with things where
Yeah.
I sit there and I go, I have a thing that I want, a result I want to achieve now, and
Yes.
no matter what I try, nothing works. So today we're talking about how to get over that and how to get things to work.
So recognizing that something's not working, I think is very positive, and I think that's something that is okay to do. But the problem is people stop there, and then they get in a loop of it'll never happen for me. I'm too old. I'm too this. I'm too that. And that's where the danger comes in. That's where people just fall in this cyclical uh, trap of loserville, let's say,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
Uh-huh.
And that's so this episode is going to talk about what you need to do, and it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult. It's going to take some work, especially if you've been doing this for 10, 20 years, and this is your thinking. But what's the alternative? The alternative is being in the same spot for the next 10 or 20 years.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. Like when I think about this, I always think about comfort, and I
Yeah.
think about how, at times in my life, I've been so very uncomfortable with the
Yeah.
situation I was in,
Yeah.
that I was motivated to change. But
Yeah.
despite that discomfort, I think the discomfort I was in, at least it was known. At
Yeah.
least I knew what that discomfort was.
Yeah.
And then when I thought about, well, geez, I could just work harder or I could just
Right.
put more effort in, then there was that fear of the unknown that was like, well, what if it's actually harder? Like, what if I never have to stop working hard? And it just,
Yeah.
so you get into that kind of comfort battle with yourself where, you sit there and you say, geez, I know I want to change. I know I want to change, but I'm not doing the things, and the things that I am doing aren't working. And then the things that people are suggesting I do, this is the
Yeah.
best part. The things
Yeah.
that the people I love who are suggesting things, or the people, my coaches, my
Yeah.
friends, like they're not going to work. They're not going to help me. And that attitude is really what we're like tearing down today.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And a lot of people that I think the problem is people think that just hard work is what's going to make them successful.
Yeah.
No, that's a piece for sure.
Yep.
They're definitely a piece. You have to work hard. You have to oftentimes, especially when you're building your career, you have to work long hours. However, there's a lot of people that are working hard and not making any money, working hard and not getting by, or just getting by.
Yeah.
So if working hard was the key to success, there'd be a lot of people successful.
Yeah.
But it isn't. It's just one piece. And so we're going to identify, and like we normally do, we have three action steps, only three, not six.
I don't have two threes. It's
Yeah,
six. It's only three.
only three. So ready to get into it?
Yeah, let's get into number one.
All
Because
right.
number one, I think is so important because we're talking a little bit about limiting beliefs, right? And that
Yeah.
invisible force of the current beliefs that you have.
Hmm.
And all of us, if we're on this podcast, you love saying, I don't have any limiting beliefs. I can do whatever set my mind to.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even the most successful people that I know have limiting beliefs. So, one of the first parts of this, kind of audit for our mental narrative that we're going through is we really have to identify that loop.
Yeah.
Right. We have to really recognize when we're using that I've tried everything story that we tell ourselves, right? I've tried everything, nothing's working.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think just the act of noticing that you're doing it is kind of the first part of this.
So the next part of this, and this is still in step one, but it's the next step in step one, and this one's the tough one. I think this is the one I feel
Mm.
that people fall off the wagon, so to speak, and this is challenge your justifications. I despise excuses. I don't mind reasons why things didn't happen, but I hate excuses. It really bothers me. And justification is really just a story excuse. It sounds better. And
Mm.
so challenging your justifications, analyzing what story are you telling yourself of why you're not successful or why you can't change or why whatever it is. So think of the strategy behind the why behind it. And this is probably going to be one of the toughest parts of this whole step, because
Yeah.
the first one is identifying it. Okay, that can be tough, but usually we see it. But then all the justification comes in, and really pulling yourself out of that and looking at, well, I do have time to work out.
Yeah.
I do have time to spend with my kids. I do have time to do this because I'm wasting my time on this thing.
Yeah. Well, and I really like this part of step one, because like I always think about Roger Bannister running the 1 minute mile or the mile in under 4 minutes, 3 minutes,
Yeah,
59.4 seconds.
yeah, yeah,
And how everybody said it's impossible, we can't do it, right?
yeah,
It's until somebody did it, and
yeah.
it's funny, there's a movie I was watching not too long ago. I can't remember the name. I think it's called The Edge with Anthony Hopkins and Alec
Okay.
Baldwin. And it has to do with like survival in the wilderness.
Hmm.
And one of the lines Anthony Hopkins uses, he says, "What one man can do, another can do."
Yeah,
And when I think of limiting beliefs and justifications, like the example you used is great. Like, well, I don't have time for fitness right now because I have kids.
yeah.
And a great way to challenge that is to say to yourself, so there's nobody who has kids who's fit. Like everybody who
Right,
has kids
right, right.
is out of shape and
Yeah.
unhealthy eating all the time. And I think that challenge helps you kind of define your current belief system, which is really the last part of this, which is, writing down and analyzing those repetitive thoughts that we have,
Right.
about our goals and that limit those limiting beliefs. What are those limiting beliefs that we're trying to get over?
Yeah, and just to put a cap on what you just said, I think the problem is some people take this literally. So you
Hmm.
mean anything anybody does you can do? Well, okay, don't be stupid. Are you intentionally saying that just
Right.
to, what's your point? Those people I can't stand.
Right.
Sorry, that was a trigger because it's about, well, okay, if I'm gonna climb a mountain, I'm going to do, hanging by cliffs and everything. Can I do that right now? Absolutely not. Maybe I'll never probably be able to do it the rest of my life. I'm too old for that, right?
Yep.
However, I'm talking about, things within the realm of the mental stuff and the belief and starting a business and doing those things. That's what we're talking about, so put things in perspective of, I'm going to be an astronaut. That's
Right.
obviously unrealistic of me in my mid 50s becoming an astronaut. That's not what we're talking about. But a lot of people do the simple things.
Yeah.
Like, why can't you run a business? Why can't you start a business? You're not too old to start a business. There's a lot of biographies about people in their 70s starting businesses. I think it was Colonel Sanders with
Yeah.
KFC. Wasn't he in his 70s when he started that?
Uh-huh.
And he's not the only one. There's many of them. So oftentimes it's the small things that trip us up, and that kind of goes back to the second bullet point in this, is that's a justification for the belief that you have. So they're
Yeah.
kind of intertwined quite a bit.
Yeah, I remember just to add into that, Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. I
Awesome.
remember
Yeah.
he like that thing was layered with examples of people who like overcame limiting beliefs. And I think
Yep.
hearing stuff like that is great. So if you haven't heard, if you I don't even know if you can still get it because I have it on cassette tape. I'm sure it's still available somewhere.
Me too. Yeah.
If you can message me, you can borrow mine. But Unlimited Power by Tony Robbins. It's a great
It's
book.
a
It's
book too,
also
isn't it?
great. Yeah, it's a book too.
I'm sure you can get the book.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
moving into our second action step, so once you kind of identify that belief, I really like this because so many people discount this, but it's about shifting your state before you change your strategy, right? Strategy is completely meaningless if your mental and emotional state
Yep.
is tuned in to fear and failure. That
Yep.
is like bullet point. We're going to talk more about this, but that is the
Yep.
crux of this.
Yep. Yep. So so I think that the big thing that people sometimes forget is physiology. So your body is one of the quickest ways to change your state.
Hmm.
I remember back, and this might be part of the Unlimited Power with Anthony Robbins when he talked about. try to be sad when you look up and smile. Your face is smiling. You got a big smile on your face, and your shoulders are back. You're looking up. Try to be sad, and that was just a demonstration of when somebody's depressed. Yes, it's going on in the mind, but what else do you see? You actually physically see their body. Their head goes down, their eyes go down. They tighten up. Um, and so the physiology part, if you learn to train your body, the body part will help you train your mind better.
100%. And I think that's really about, your body creates what we're going to call your emotional frequency, right?
Right.
So, your vibe, like let's call it your vibe, your body posture, your physiology, your face. I always talk to my kids about this. If you walk around the mall and you look at people's faces and just what the
Yeah.
relaxed state of their faces, it's usually very like meh.
Yeah.
And it's amazing, like you said, how much a smile can do. But before
Hmm.
getting into any big tasks, right? I mean, whether it's if your workout, your team meetings, your marketing plan, before you go into
Hmm.
those things, ensure you're not coming from a fearful state. Make sure that you are
Right.
in a good state. Like I do this by like I'll clap my hands a couple times. That is what I
Yep.
do. Brendan Burchard in High Performance Habits talks about every time you walk through the threshold of a
Yep.
door, kind of doing that superhero entrance
Hmm.
into the room, and
Yep.
it changes your state. But I think just doing a quick check on that emotional frequency before you do anything important is a strong habit to get into.
And a bonus for that, self-defense, you should be doing the same thing. You
Absolutely.
should, every time you cross a threshold, and actually even before, you should scan the room before you enter that. That's a self-defense. So there's a little bonus for you.
Look at that.
So the last part of step number two is make that certainty a tool. And so you want to if you can model the state of somebody else. So who's somebody that is positive? Who's somebody that the way they look confident. What do they do? How do they look? And try to model their behavior. I mean, that's what kids do. Um, Oftentimes I hear parents like, I don't know why he's acting the way he's acting, about their child. And I'm like, I feel like having a mirror in my pocket and holding it up
Yeah.
to him because so often the child is acting just like you. They're saying, I don't know why my child is swearing. And they're at home, swearing up a storm in front of their kids, but telling them not to swear. Of course they're going to swear. Now, of course, kids are going to learn that in other places other than their house. But it's certainly you're not you're reinforcing it if you're also doing that. So I think it's important that we all model people, but oftentimes as we get older and as adults, we forget to model success,
Yeah.
or we're hanging around people that aren't successful.
Uh-huh.
And so if you want to be more successful, and I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about successful in life and improve it, you have to make sure you're modeling people around you that are showing the things that you want to see.
Love that. Absolutely. Action step three, execute with non-negotiable resolve. Once you're in that state, this is when the strategy works,
Yep.
right? Because now your brain, your frequency, your belief systems, everything's in line. This is when you put the execution, put the plan into place, let the rubber hit the road. Commit to kind of that how many, how
Hmm.
hard, like what
Hmm.
is the tactic or the tactics that you're going to put into practice that moment. What are we going
Yep.
to do? Because a lot of times we hear that, well, I'll try, and I always love
Yeah.
Yoda, right? You can't try, yeah, right? There is no try.
No.
You have to commit to doing a thing. Now, this differs with everybody. I don't like I do commit to times, but I leave flexibility because
Yeah.
I think that rigid flexibility helps. If you say I'm going to work out at 6 a.m. every day,
Yeah.
and then one day it's 6:04 when you wake up, you'll skip the whole day.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
But
that's not good. Right.
no, but at least having that resolve on what you're going to do, how often, get that into place.
Yeah. And before I get into the next bullet point in this, something that I worked with my kids a lot is anytime they said I'll try to do it, I would correct them. You know, um, and that makes and I do that with my students as well because it's a simple thing, and I probably catch myself doing it every once in a while too, but it's an easy out.
Yeah.
It's not a commitment. Can you do this? Can you be here? Well, I'll try. And sometimes it might be legit. Hey, listen, I have a busy schedule. I'll do this. I'll try to get it. But oftentimes when you use the word try, it's just an easy way out because you'll see how you feel in the next day if you're going to do it or not.
Yeah.
And if you're basing your actions on how you feel, you're not going to get anything done.
That's 100%
You
right.
know, and if we don't teach our kids that just because you don't feel like doing something doesn't mean you don't do it. Like if we don't teach them that, hey, listen, if you made a commitment, you'd stick to your commitment. Bottom line, doesn't matter if something else comes up better. I know, especially with my daughter, she's had friends throughout the years that whatever else came up better, they would do.
Yeah.
They were that type of friend, and it's like, listen, you have to stop hanging around this person, because that's not good. They're not showing commitment. Do you want to be that kind of person that says one thing but something else better comes up and you do something else? That's just that's a horrible way. You don't want to be around that person, basically.
No. Yeah.
You know, so now the next bullet point is setting a time frame of the completion. So this is basic goal setting 101. Is if you say, I want to lose 12 pounds, that's great, but what's your time frame? Now, if your
Yeah.
time frame is in a month, well, you're probably going to be doing something a little sketchy for that to happen, if you're going to do that in a month. But if you say maybe 2 months, that's, real, or 3 months certainly is realistic. So setting a time frame of this is when I'm going to get it done, I think is important. You mentioned the time frame of when you're going to do it. This is
Yeah.
when you're going to complete it.
Yep, 100%. And then, the last bullet point in this is really about aligning your strategy and your state. So just making sure that, when you apply whatever you're doing it at a time when you're in state. And I always caution people with this because it's easy to say, well, I'm not in the mood, just exactly what you said. But the great thing about state is we can change it immediately, right? Like we can change our
Yep.
state by, changing our body posture, changing our physiology, pumping ourselves up, listening to something that, some of us have different songs that amp us up, but getting yourself in state for performance so that way you're getting the most out of it. I don't remember who I was talking to. I was talking to somebody about working out, and we were talking about listening to podcasts and audiobooks.
Oh,
And I said, I can listen to books and podcasts while I'm like walking on the treadmill.
yeah.
I cannot listen to them while I'm doing weights or while I'm
Nope.
going for like a run, right?
Same thing.
Because if I'm doing high level exercise, I mean, can you imagine taking a martial? Can you imagine sparring to a podcast?
No.
I mean,
Mm.
like when you need that state, do what it takes to get yourself in that state for the action,
Yeah.
so that way you get the most out of it.
Yep, for sure. Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think we probably talked about this before.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
yeah,
how I am too. But I think I did talk to somebody about that. They actually listen to podcasts while they're lifting weights.
it's so much credit. I would go nuts.
Yeah, yeah,
I'd lose
yeah. I don't know
count.
how they do it. Yep. It's a little strange, but that's okay. If it works for them, it's fine, right?
Amen.
And
That's
and
it.
they're getting two things done at once. They're goal stacking,
Hmm.
which is a very very good strategy to do. So let's review. So we step one was auditing your internal narrative, and this is something that I think it can be easy until you get into the next step of challenging your justifications in there and challenging your beliefs. So that's all part of that. Number one is auditing that internal narrative. So it starts easy, identifying, and then it gets much tougher as you go down.
100%. Part two, shift your state before your strategy. So really, you're just putting that bullet point on that sentence. Strategy is useless if your mental and emotional state is tuned to failure or fear. Practice that physical intensity. Get your body and your emotions in state.
Yep. And then step three is the execution with non-negotiables. And so you might say I'm going to work out at 6, and it's okay if it's 6:05, but we're talking about making sure that if you say you're going to work out, you're going to work out. If you say you're going to
Yes.
work out tomorrow, you work out tomorrow. It does happen. And then along with that, you set time frames of when you want things complete, so they are goals and not just dreams or wishes. And then you want to try to align the strategy with your state and try to put it all together, all the other steps together in this last step, so that way you're wrapping it up because it all is intertwined. You can't have one without the other. You can't have a great plan and no good state of mind. You have to have both.
100%. And that wraps up this episode of the Achieve Results Now podcast. If you know one of those people, or if you are, I mean, if you are one of those people, you already listen to the podcast. But if you know one of those people who says things just aren't working, nothing works, I'm stuck in this rut,
Yep.
definitely send them this podcast if you think it would help them. And we will see you on the next episode.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening. Hop over to our website at www.achieveresultsnow.com to get your free copy of our book, Ignite Results, 4 specific daily actions to help you achieve results now. You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Achieve Results Now. Thanks for listening, commenting, and subscribing. Now get out there and achieve results now.